hand presses into wet clay 40,000 years ago and holds there for exactly as long as it takes to breathe in. Then it lifts away. What remains is not a signature. It is a question, left behind for a species that would not exist for another 38,000 years. Most people picture the caveman as something unfinished, a rough draft of a human, grunting, hunched, dragging a club through the mud, waiting for evolution to arrive and fix him. That image is comforting. It makes the past feel small, and it makes us feel like the finished product. It is also almost entirely wrong. The people we call cavemen buried their dead with flowers. They tracked the moon. They pierced shell beads with tools so fine that modern researchers struggle to replicate them by hand. Somewhere between the museum diorama and the real archaeological record, an entire species got quietly erased and replaced with a caricature. So the real question is not what cavemen lacked. It's what we lost the ability to see. Start with the cave itself, because even that word is a kind of lie. Most early humans did not live in caves. Caves were shelter, not home, used seasonally, defensively, ceremonially. The real architecture of prehistoric life was built from mammoth bone, hide, and wood in structures engineered with enough precision to survive an ice age winter. In Ukraine, at a site called Mezhirich, archaeologists uncovered the remains of a hut built from the bones of over 60 mammoths. 60. Stacked, interlocked, load-bearing. This was not a shelter of desperation. This was an engineering decision made by people who understood weight distribution, insulation, and structural failure points better than most of us ever will. They were not hiding from the world. They were negotiating with it. Now picture a body laid into the earth at Sungir, in modern-day Russia, roughly 34,000 years ago. Around it, nearly 3,000 ivory beads, each one shaped by hand, each one requiring, by conservative estimate, over an hour of labor. That is not survival behavior. Survival behavior does not spend 3,000 hours grieving. Somewhere in that grave is a species already asking questions we still haven't answered. What happens after this? What do we owe the dead? What does a life mean once it ends? The bones don't answer those questions, but the beads prove the questions were already being asked. Here is where the discomfort begins. We like to imagine intelligence as a straight line. Apes, then cavemen, then us, climbing steadily upward like a graph pointed toward inevitability. But the fossil record doesn't show a line. It shows a crowd. At the same moment, Homo sapiens were carving bone needles in Europe. Neanderthals were making their own tools, tending their own fires, possibly making their own art in the caves of Spain. Nearby, in Siberia, a different human lineage entirely, the Denisovans, were interbreeding with both. For a brief, strange window in deep time, multiple human species walked the same earth, aware of each other, competing, mingling, disappearing. We are the only ones left to tell the story, which means the story we tell is the story of the survivor, not necessarily the story of the truth. Consider fire for a moment, because fire changes everything it touches. Around 1 million years ago, something happens to the human skull. The jaw shortens, the gut shrinks. The brain, expensive, hungry, demanding 20% of the body's total energy, begins its long climb upward. Researchers still debate the exact trigger, but one theory keeps resurfacing: cooked food. Once meat and roots could be softened by flame, the body no longer needed to spend its energy grinding and digesting raw material. That saved energy went somewhere. It went into thought. In other words, the campfire may be the first machine that ever built a mind. Every strategy session, every negotiation, every quiet argument about tomorrow's hunt. It happened in that flickering circle of light, at the exact edge where visibility ends and imagination has to take over. And this is the part that unsettles people most. Cavemen were not lonely silent brutes. They were intensely, almost unbearably social. Group sizes were small, often under 50 people, which meant every relationship mattered. There was no anonymity to hide inside, no stranger to blame. Every alliance, every insult, every kindness rippled through the entire group within a day. In a world like that, cooperation was not a moral virtue. It was a survival algorithm, which means something uncomfortable. The parts of us we call kindness, loyalty, guilt, and grief. They may not be recent inventions of civilization at all. They may be older than agriculture, older than cities, older possibly than language itself. So return one last time to that handprint in the clay. We assume ancient people were driven purely by hunger and threat. Eat, avoid death, repeat. But somewhere in the dark, someone pressed their palm against stone for no survival reason at all. No food came from it, no safety, no advantage passed down the generations. Just a mark, a signal, sent forward across 40,000 years, saying without words, I was conscious. I was here. I wondered about the same things you wonder about. We didn't inherit civilization from the cavemen. We inherited the question mark. And it's still open. Like and subscribe. See you in the next.